Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check out these headlines we have here for you today. Central bank and gold vehicle for revolt. You're going to want to know about it. SEC fines and cease and desist order against another crypto exchange. My goodness, when will it end? Brazil's speech in China about why the U.S. dollar. Oh, this gets worse. Remember what happened last time an African country announced a gold-backed currency? Well, here we go again. First Republic is seized by, guess who? BIS Augustin Carson sends out a massive call to action to all central banks. You're going to want to know what it is. Former White House economic advisor warns a BRICS currency could dislodge the U.S. dollar as a global reserve currency. And you know what? There's an agreement from BRICS for a currency this year. We're going to talk about it. The world desperately needs an alternative, they say. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on Twitter and YouTube for exclusive content. Right now, $1.23 trillion market cap for crypto. It's off by 2%. Bitcoin, 28,400 plus. Ethereum, 1840 and change. Tether market cap, 81.5 billion plus, off by 300 million right now. And we see XRP at 46 cents. Everything's bleeding a little bit pretty much here on the market. We're off by 2.8% in the last 24 hours here. Let's take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen, right here. Breaking: hacker reportedly steals 986 Bitcoin from Russia's intelligence service. Uh-oh. That's no good. You know, what can you say? Meanwhile, gold is now a vehicle. Central bank revolt against the dollar. Often in the past, both dollar and gold have been seen as havens, but now gold is seen as much safer. Chairman of the Rockefeller Capital International. Well, listen, I'm no Rockefeller, but I am gathering what gold I can on Glint, and you can do the same if you like it. Link underneath the video. Buy, save, send, and spend gold instantly with Glint. Gold is security, and Glint, it's key. Click the link underneath the video. No doubt about it. U.S. SEC fined and issued a cease and desist order against crypto exchange CoinMe and its subsidiary Up Global Incorporated for conducting an unregistered misleading ICO of crypto asset called Up Token. You know, this is the SEC striking again, ladies and gentlemen, here in the U.S., while the world is making massive moves, and you're about to see it for the rest of this video. Remember when Brazil's president went to China? Well, this is what he said. Every night I ask myself in his speech while he was in China, I ask myself why all countries have to base their trade on the U.S. dollar. Why can't we do trade based in our own currencies? Who was it that decided that the dollar was the currency after the disappearance of the gold standard? It's all right here. I'm not going to read it to you again. That's what was said when he went there. And does anybody have the history to remember, or are you old enough to remember what happened the last time an African nation announced a gold-backed currency? Zimbabwe's Reserve Bank is launching gold-backed digital tokens on May 8th, and just 7 days from now, as a part of its de-dollarization strategy. The gold-backed token aims to provide stable means of payment and store of value in Zimbabwean economy. It's all right here. You can read it if you like. I've already done it, so you don't have to. But you know what? There's more. And right back at home, we're watching the U.S. Federal Reserve set to raise rates again, taking us up another 25 basis points to 5.25% in 3 days. Well, causing fallout all across the banking world here. We know First Republic Bank went down. Well, it's been seized and sold to none other. Can you guess who? J.P. Morgan. Look at this from Mario Nawfal here. Shout out to you, Mario. The FDIC avoided another banking crisis by seizing First Republic and selling it to JP Morgan. Oh, look at the favor they're doing us. Including all $103.9 billion in deposits and $229.1 billion in assets. Are you hearing the enormity of these numbers? The First Republic represents the second largest bank failure in the U.S., losing $100 billion in deposits 2 months ago after the fall of Silicon Valley Bank. 3 of the 4 largest ever bank failures have now taken place in the past 8 weeks. The First Republic, Silicon Valley Bank, and Signature Bank. We also saw the spectacular fall of Credit Suisse in March, bailed out by the Swiss National Bank and acquired by UBS. Most analysts don't expect First Republic to cause a domino effect like we saw in 2008. I don't understand how they can come to such a conclusion when we know banking is a confidence game. He's absolutely right. Remember in the U.S. when we have fractional lending reserve system, meaning banks only need to hold 10% of the fund's customer deposits. Now, this is incredible, right? So a relatively small panic can cause a bank run. FDIC insurance can only do so much to restore the confidence in such an environment, especially in today's world where the information and fear spreads faster than ever before. As the Fed continues to fight inflation by raising interest rates, we are now seeing more and more cracks in the system. Are you worried of more banks failing? Could we see a similar economic collapse as 2008? I think so, and I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but it is very, very concerning. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad author, said this. What, the Fed? Why is the Fed destroying regional banks across America? Regional banks are the heart and soul of the economy. Fed via the repo market is killing regional banks. Is this intentional? Is a depression intentional? What the F is the Fed up to? Get the money out of regionals. This is, this is the concern. Pennies on the dollar. JP Morgan picks it up. Pennies on the dollar they do. Now they own First Republic. And here's the call to action to all the central banks here. Shout out to Anders for this one here. It's Augustin Carson's from the BIS, the Central Bank of Central Banks, telling all of them this is a time to be bold. And I think Anders has got it right here. Exactly what I want to hear, meaning embracing new technology by collaborating with the private sector. I think he's got it.
Sometimes we need to be bold, and sometimes we need to think big. We're in the planning process. This has to be put in context of the moment that we're living. We are in a unique situation in finance and in central banking where we have at our hand a technology that didn't exist before. And I think it is incumbent on us to think what is the best way we can use that technology. To have a completely different rethink, it's, I think, refreshing from the point of view that it allows you to think on alternatives and to think on ways where many of these frictional elements can be eliminated.
And there you have it right there. Encouraging central banks to be bold. We now have the technology, right, to eliminate the friction. Where we heard all this talk before. More importantly, have we ever seen a moment that is so bad, whether it's here in the United States with banks or on the geopolitical level in the monetary financial system, as highlighted here by former Morgan Stanley managing director? I covered this very quickly over the weekend, but I want to highlight it here. He expects us to go from a shift to the unipolar reserve currency, which is the U.S. dollar as the global reserve currency, to a multipolar world with the Chinese yuan, the euro, and the U.S. dollar forming a tripolar reserve currency configuration. This is the natural phase in moving to a new system. If you go back and study the transitions of the last 4 or 5 national currencies that served as a global reserve currency, you will see that a moment that he is describing here is exactly how the transition happens. The average lifespan of a global reserve currency that is also a national currency has been about 94 years, where 70 plus in the U.S. dollar's reign. Meanwhile, former White House economic advisor says this: a coming BRICS-issued currency has the potential to topple the U.S. dollar's dominance in international trade. I remind you, BRICS, the size it is now, has almost half the population of the world and at least half of the natural resources of the world. Now, add in the 19 applicant countries that would also like to join BRICS, and that number is staggering. That's what we're talking about here. And this article says exactly that. And if I just go through here, it's very short. I'm going to read it quickly. Former White House economic advisor, not a YouTuber, not a podcaster, says, in fact, that a BRICS-issued currency has the potential to top the U.S. dollar's dominance in international trade. In an article with Foreign Policy, Joseph Sullivan says that a BRICS-issued money would enable its members to turn their backs on the dollar and trade goods and services using the new currency, which he calls the BRIC. According to Sullivan, who served during the Trump administration, the BRIC could usurp the dollar's place on the throne, as BRICS is composed of economic heavyweights in their respective regions. Again, this all falls back to what I've talked about not one country in BRICS coalition alone can do the damage, but together they can do death by 1,000 cuts to the U.S. dollar. He goes on to say, is it realistic to imagine BRICS using only the BRIC for trade? Yes, he says. For starters, they could fund the entirety of their import bills by themselves. In 2022, as a whole, the BRICS ran a trade surplus, also known as a balance of payment surplus, of $387 billion, mostly thanks to China. The BRICS would also be poised to achieve a level of self-sufficiency in international trade that has eluded the world's other currency unions. That's what we're up against, ladies and gentlemen. And as he says here, the dollar's reign isn't likely to end overnight, but a BRIC would begin the slow erosion of its dominance. And that's why the U.S. cannot continue to turn a blind eye. And I believe, glass half full, they are working on solutions. Because to further the point about a BRIC currency, Russian officials expect an agreement this year. As they highlight, in the next meeting in August, the BRICS currency is expected to be discussed as the next leaders summit in the summer. So we will see what comes of that. And if you're confused about the feeling and the intensity of how desperately they want to move away from the U.S. dollar dominance, listen to this Indian billionaire and bank CEO tell you exactly how strongly and passionately they feel about doing just that.
I genuinely feel the biggest financial terrorist in the world is the US dollar. All our monies are in nostro accounts. I genuinely feel the biggest financial terrorist in the world is the US dollar. All our monies are in nostro accounts, and somebody in the US can say, you cannot withdraw it from tomorrow morning. And you're stuck.
Yeah.
That is the power of the reserve currency. And I think we are at a very crucial time in the world history, where the world is desperately looking for an alternative reserve currency. These changes happen once in hundreds of years.
And there you go. And as I told you, the life expectancy of a currency is about 94 years as a global reserve currency. So if we're about 72, 73 years in, you would want to start making those adjustments now, whether you're BRICS or the United States. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. It's just my digital perspectives. I'll catch all of you on the next one.